The morning sky over Seoul changed forever when the first ship appeared. Captain Dae-ho Kim was drinking his coffee in the Korean Space Defense Force Command Center when every alarm in the building started screaming. His cup hit the floor as he ran to the main screen. Above the city, a massive silver vessel hung in the air like a floating mountain. It was bigger than any building, silent and beautiful in a way that made his heart race with fear. "Sir, we have similar reports from every major city on Earth," Lieutenant Nari Park called out from her station. Her voice was steady, but Dae-ho could see her hands shaking as she worked the controls. "New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, they all have ships." Dae-ho grabbed the phone to call headquarters, but before he could dial, every screen in the room lit up with the same image. A tall, thin creature with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes looked directly at them. When it spoke, the words came out in perfect Korean, English, and dozens of other languages all at once. "People of Earth," the creature said, its voice gentle and warm. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Kalani Confederation. We come in peace and friendship. We have traveled far to offer your world something precious: protection and membership in our galactic alliance." The ambassador smiled, and somehow that smile looked almost human despite the alien features. "We know this must be frightening for you. First contact always is. But we are here to help. Your species has reached the point where you need guidance and protection from the dangers that exist beyond your solar system." Nari looked up from her console. "Captain, I'm reading over 200 ships worldwide. They're not doing anything aggressive, just hanging there. We invite your leaders to meet with us," Veltar continued. "We will show you wonders beyond your imagination. Technology that can heal any disease, energy systems that will end pollution forever, and most importantly, the protection of the greatest alliance in this part of the galaxy." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Dae-ho stared at the empty screen, his mind racing. Protection from what? The question burned in his thoughts, but before he could voice it, his phone rang. "Captain Kim, this is Coordinator Woo Jin Lee from Unified Defense Command. I need you and your best people ready for immediate deployment. We're being invited to the big show." 3 hours later, Dae-ho found himself in a helicopter flying toward the massive alien ship floating over Seoul. Beside him sat Nari and Dr. So-young Choi, Earth's leading expert on theoretical alien biology. None of them had expected to use her expertise this soon. "The energy readings are incredible," So-young said, staring at her instruments. "This ship is generating more power than our entire electrical grid, but I can't detect any radiation or harmful emissions." As they approached the ship, a gentle beam of light surrounded their helicopter. Dae-ho tensed, ready for anything. But instead of being attacked, they were simply lifted inside the ship through what appeared to be a solid wall. The interior took his breath away. Gardens with impossible plants grew alongside walkways that seemed to be made of liquid light. The air smelled like spring rain and flowers he couldn't identify. Kalani moved gracefully through the corridors, their movements flowing like dancers. "Welcome, honored guests." Veltar appeared before them as they landed. Up close, The ambassador was even more impressive. Tall and elegant, with clothes that seemed to shift color in the light. "I am pleased you accepted our invitation." They were led through halls filled with wonders, machines that created food from thin air, walls that showed views of distant worlds with purple skies and golden seas, children laughing as they played games that involved floating balls of light. "This is just a small sample," Veltar explained as they walked. "Every world in our confederation enjoys these benefits: peace, prosperity, and most importantly, safety." In the main conference hall, leaders from around the world were gathering. Daeho recognized the President of South Korea, the Secretary General of the United Nations, and many others. They all looked amazed and slightly overwhelmed. Coordinator Woo-Jin Lee stood near the front, studying everything with sharp eyes. He was younger than most of the other leaders, chosen for his skills in military strategy and diplomacy. When he saw Daeho and his team arrive, he nodded grimly. "Impressive show," Woo-Jin said quietly as they joined him. "But I want to know what it's really going to cost us." Veltar raised his arms for attention, and the room fell silent. "Leaders of Earth, we offer you a choice that will determine your world's future. The galaxy is not a safe place. There are species out there that would see your beautiful planet as nothing more than resources to be taken. Pirates, raiders, and worse things that hunt among the stars. Holographic images filled the air above them. Destroyed cities, burned forests, enslaved populations on distant worlds. The images were horrible, and several leaders stepped back in shock. "This is why the Kalani Confederation exists," Veltar continued. "We protect worlds like yours. We offer technology, guidance, and most importantly, our military protection against those who would harm you." The ambassador gestured, and the terrible images were replaced by beautiful scenes of peaceful worlds. Cities that gleamed like jewels. Farms that produced incredible harvests. People of many different species living together in harmony. All we ask in return is trust. Allow us to establish protection stations around your world. Accept our guidance in certain matters. Join our alliance willingly, and Earth will know peace and prosperity for all time. A golden document appeared in the air before each leader. The text was in their native languages, but somehow Daeho could understand every word even though he was reading the Korean version. It was a treaty, promising protection, technology, and membership in the galactic community. Most of the leaders looked ready to sign immediately. The offer was incredible, almost too good to be true. Advanced technology, an end to war and poverty, protection from cosmic threats. What more could humanity want? But Nari was frowning as she read the treaty. So Young looked troubled as she studied the aliens with scientific curiosity, and Woo-Jin was asking quiet questions to his advisors. "This is a momentous day," Veltar said, producing an elegant writing instrument. "The day Earth joins the galactic community. Please take your time to read the agreement, but know that this offer will not remain open forever. The galaxy is becoming more dangerous, and unprotected worlds often find themselves facing terrible fates. As the leaders began to gather around the signing table, Deho noticed something odd. The Kalani in the room all seemed to be watching the humans very carefully, not with the friendly interest of hosts, but with the focused attention of people, waiting for something specific to happen. The feeling in his stomach grew stronger. This was all very impressive, very generous, and very convenient. But in his years as a military officer, Deho had learned that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. He caught Nari's eye and saw the same suspicion there. Good. They were going to need clear thinking in the hours ahead, because despite all the beautiful promises and impressive technology, one question kept echoing in his mind. Protection from whom, exactly? The signing ceremony was set to begin in 1 hour. Leaders from every nation sat around a circular table made of what looked like crystallized starlight. The Kalani had spared no expense in making this moment feel historic and important. Nari. Park stood with the other military advisors along the wall, watching as photographers and news crews documented everything. This would be the most important moment in human history, they said. The day Earth joined the galactic community. But something felt wrong. She had read the treaty 3 times now, and each time the same thought nagged at her. The document was full of beautiful language about friendship and cooperation, but when it came to specific details, everything became vague. Dr. Choi, she whispered to So Young, who was standing nearby with a tablet full of readings from her instruments. Have you noticed anything odd about their behavior? So Young nodded slowly. They're nervous about something. Look at how they keep checking the time. And see that advisor over there? He's been whispering urgently to Veltar every few minutes. Captain Deho joined them, his face serious. Coordinator Lee wants us to stay alert. He thinks something's not right either. Ambassador Veltar stood at the head of the table, smiling warmly at all the assembled leaders. In his hands was an ornate pen that seemed to glow with its own light. Today marks a new beginning for Earth. Your world will never again stand alone against the darkness between the stars. The president of South Korea reached for the pen first, but Coordinator Woo-Jin Lee gently placed a hand on his arm. Ambassador Veltar, before we proceed, my military advisors have prepared some questions about the protection protocols, standard procedure for any defense agreement. Veltar's smile flickered for just a moment. Of course, though I assure you, our protection has kept thousands of worlds safe for centuries. Wu Jin gestured to Nari. She felt her heart racing as every eye in the room turned to her. This was not how she had expected to spend her morning, but someone had to ask the questions that mattered. Thank you, Coordinator Lee, she said, stepping forward. Her voice was steady despite her nerves. Ambassador Veltar, you've spoken about threats and dangers that exist in space. Could you be more specific about what exactly you're protecting us from? The room fell silent. Even the news cameras seemed to focus more intently on the alien ambassador. Veltar's smile remained, but Nari noticed his large dark eyes had grown slightly wider. Well, Lieutenant, the galaxy contains many dangerous species, pirates, raiders, aggressive empires that seek to expand their territory. I understand that. Nari continued. But could you give us specific names? Which species should we be concerned about? Where are they located? Have any of them shown interest in Earth? So Young stepped forward to join her. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, I'm particularly interested in the nature of these threats. What makes them dangerous? What are their capabilities? Veltar looked around at his fellow Kalani, and Nari caught a quick exchange of glances between them. The ambassador cleared his throat. The Vorthak Collective is one such threat. They are known for their aggression and territorial expansion. Where are they located? Deho asked, moving to stand with his colleagues. They operate in the outer spiral arm of the galaxy. How far is that from Earth? So, Young pressed. Another pause. Several thousand light years. Nari felt her suspicions growing stronger. Have the Vorthak ever been detected in this region of space? Not recently, but what about these pirates you mentioned? Wu Jin Li interrupted smoothly. When was the last time they attacked a world near our solar system? Veltar was definitely looking uncomfortable now. Several other Kalani had moved closer to him, and Nari could hear them whispering in their own language. The translator devices weren't picking up their private conversation. Pirates move constantly, Veltar said finally. They are unpredictable. But surely you have records, Dr. Choi said, pulling out her tablet. If these threats are real and immediate enough to require orbital defense platforms around Earth, there must be recent incidents we can study. The ambassador's elegant composure was starting to crack. The Confederation handles security matters. Individual worlds don't need to concern themselves with such details. Nari exchanged a look with Deho. That wasn't an answer at all. Ambassador, she said carefully, we're not asking for military secrets. We just want to understand what we're being protected from. It's reasonable for us to know what threats justify giving up aspects of our planetary sovereignty. You're not giving up sovereignty, Veltar said quickly. You're gaining protection by allowing you to place weapons platforms in orbit around our world, Wu Jin pointed out. Platforms that, according to this treaty, would be under Kalani control. For your own safety. From enemies that are thousands of light years away? So Young asked. The tension in the room was growing. The human leaders were starting to murmur among themselves, and Nari could see doubt spreading across their faces. Several of the Kalani were now gathered around Veltar, speaking rapidly in their own language. Nari decided to push harder. Ambassador, in your centuries of protecting worlds, how many times have these threats actually attacked planets under Kalani protection? That information is classified for security reasons. How many unprotected worlds have been attacked in the last 100 years? I cannot give you exact numbers without consulting our records. Deho stepped forward. You're asking us to sign a treaty that will fundamentally change our world's status. But you can't give us basic information about the threats you're protecting us from? The threats are real, Veltar snapped, his calm demeanor finally breaking. Your world is primitive and defenseless. Without our protection, you will be destroyed. The room went dead silent. The change in the ambassador's tone was shocking. Gone was the gentle, friendly diplomat. In his place stood someone who looked angry and frustrated. Nari felt a chill run down her spine. Destroyed by whom exactly? Veltar realized his mistake immediately. His face went pale and he struggled to regain his composure. I simply meant that the galaxy is dangerous for unprotected worlds. But you just said we would be destroyed, So Young pointed out. That's very specific. Do you have intelligence about a planned attack on Earth? No, that's not what I meant. Wu Jin Li stood up slowly. Ambassador Veltar, I think we need to take a break from these proceedings. My advisors have raised some valid questions that require answers before any signing can take place. But the timeline, one of the other Kalani blurted out before Veltar could stop him. We must have the agreement signed today. Why? Nari asked immediately. What's special about today? Veltar shot a furious look at his subordinate. There's no special timeline. We simply hope to complete this historic moment without unnecessary delays. But the damage was done. Every human in the room could sense the desperation behind the alien's polite words. The Kalani needed this treaty signed quickly, and they needed it for reasons they weren't sharing. I think, Coordinator Lee said diplomatically, we should postpone the signing until tomorrow. This will give us time to review the details more carefully and for you to provide the information we've requested. The look of panic that flashed across Veltar's face was all the confirmation Nari needed. These weren't benevolent protectors offering a generous gift. These were beings with their own agenda, and Earth was somehow important to their plans. As the human leaders filed out of the conference room, Nari caught Daeho's arm. We need to find out what they're really after. Agreed, he said grimly. And we need to do it fast. I don't think they're going to wait much longer for an answer. The emergency meeting took place in a secure conference room beneath the Blue House in Seoul. Leaders from around the world joined by secure video link, their faces grim on the multiple screens that lined the walls. The mood was very different from the excitement of just hours before. Coordinator Wu Jin Lee sat at the head of the table with Captain Daeho Kim, Lieutenant Nari Park, and Dr. So Young Choi beside him. On the screens, they could see the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the Chancellor of Germany, and dozens of other world leaders. Let's be clear about what happened today, Wu Jin began. Our questions exposed serious problems with the Kalani story. They claim to offer protection, but they can't tell us what they're protecting us from. The German Chancellor leaned forward on her screen. My scientific advisors have been analyzing the treaty. Language. The protection platforms they want to install would give them complete control over everything that enters or leaves Earth's atmosphere. That's not protection, the British Prime Minister said bluntly. That's occupation. Dr. So Young Choi opened her tablet and began presenting her analysis. I've been studying their behavior and responses. When we asked direct questions, they showed classic signs of deception. Increased stress responses, inconsistent stories, and what appears to be panic when we suggested delaying the signing. What do you think they really want? Asked the Japanese Prime Minister. That's what we need to find out, Daeho said. But first, let's examine what they told us about these supposed threats. Nari pulled up her notes from the meeting. They mentioned the Vorthak Collective, located thousands of light-years away. They also mentioned pirates and raiders, but couldn't provide any specific information about recent attacks. My team has been analyzing this, So Young continued. If Earth truly faced immediate threats, we would expect to see evidence. Radio transmissions from approaching ships, energy signatures from weapons being charged, some kind of military activity in our region of space. Our deep space monitoring networks have detected nothing unusual. The French president spoke up from his screen. So either these threats don't exist, or they're not actually threatening Earth. There's a third possibility, Wu Jin said grimly. The threats are real, but they're not what the Kalani claim they are. An aide entered the room and whispered something to Wu Jin. His face grew even more serious. Ambassador Veltar is requesting another meeting. He says he has important information to share about the urgency of our situation. Let's hear what he has to say, Nari suggested. But this time we go in with our eyes wide open. 2 hours later, they were back aboard the Kalani flagship. This time, the atmosphere was noticeably different. The aliens seemed tense, and Veltar's usual smooth confidence was replaced by obvious anxiety. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting," the ambassador began. "I understand your concerns, and I want to address them directly." "Good," Wu Jin said. "We're ready to listen." Veltar activated a holographic display that showed a map of local space. "I want to be completely honest with you about the threats your world faces. The Vorthak collective that I mentioned earlier, they are indeed far away. And the pirates I spoke of, they rarely operate in this sector." So Young leaned forward. "Then what exactly are you protecting us from?" "The threat is more subtle, but no less real," Veltar said. "Your world has something that makes it extremely valuable. Not gold or rare minerals, but something far more precious." "What?" Deho demanded. "Strategic location." The holographic map zoomed out to show a larger section of the galaxy. Earth's solar system appeared as a small dot among thousands of others, but certain routes were highlighted in different colors. This region of space sits at the intersection of 3 major trade routes, Veltar explained. Control of this area would give any power tremendous influence over galactic commerce. As your world develops space travel technology, you will inevitably become involved in these trade networks. Nari studied the map carefully. And you want to control that intersection through us. We want to protect it, Veltar insisted. There are forces in the galaxy that would use Earth's position for aggressive purposes. The Zenthari Empire, for example, has been expanding their territory through economic pressure and military threats. "Where are they?" So Young asked. Another pause. "Currently, they are expanding in a different direction, but they have shown interest in this region." "How much interest?" Wu Jin pressed. "Well, they have sent scouts to systems within 50 light-years of here." Deho felt his patience running out. "So we have enemies thousands of light-years away, pirates that don't operate here, and an empire that's expanding in a different direction, but might someday be interested in our area." "You're oversimplifying." "No," Nari interrupted. "We're seeing the truth. Earth has no immediate threats. What we have is strategic value that you want to control. Veltar's composure finally cracked completely. You don't understand. Your species is too primitive to navigate galactic politics. Without guidance, you'll make alliances with the wrong powers. Or worse, you'll try to remain independent and become a target. A target for whom? So Young demanded. For everyone. Independent worlds that control valuable territory never stay independent for long. The room fell silent as the implications of what Veltar had just said sank in. Nari felt a cold understanding wash over her. You're saying that independent worlds get attacked, she said slowly. But a moment ago, you couldn't name any specific threats to Earth. So who exactly attacks these independent worlds? Veltar realized he had said too much. His face went pale, and he looked around desperately at his fellow Kalani. The galaxy is complex, he said weakly. There are many different powers. Powers like the Kalani Confederation? Deho asked quietly. We are protectors. Protectors who just admitted that independent worlds controlling valuable territory don't stay independent, Woojin pointed out. That sounds like a threat, not protection. Dr. So Young Choi stood up and walked over to the holographic display. She studied the trade routes and strategic positions for a long moment. Ambassador, I have one more question. In your centuries of offering protection to worlds like ours, how many of those worlds eventually chose to leave the Confederation and return to independence? The silence that followed was deafening. That information would require consulting our historical databases. How many? So Young pressed. The question is irrelevant because no world would want to leave our protection once they understand. The benefits? How many? Nari repeated firmly. Veltar looked trapped. None, he finally admitted. But that's because they realize that independence is impossible in the modern galaxy. Or because you don't let them leave, Deho said grimly. The alien ambassador straightened his shoulders and tried to regain his authority. You are being foolish and paranoid. The offer of protection and membership is generous beyond measure. Your world will benefit immeasurably from our guidance. What happens if we refuse? Wu Jin asked bluntly. Another long pause. I would hope that wouldn't be necessary. Surely your people are wise enough to see the benefits of our offer. But what happens if we refuse? Nari repeated. The galaxy is dangerous for unprotected worlds, Veltar said, his voice taking on a subtle but unmistakable edge. Terrible things can happen to planets that try to stand alone. The threat was clear now, even though it was wrapped in diplomatic language. Accept Kalani protection or face the consequences. As they left the alien ship, So Young shook her head in disgust. They're not protectors. They're a protection racket. Pay us, or something bad might happen to you. Worse than that, Deho said. I think they're the ones who make the bad things happen. Wu Jin nodded grimly. The question now is, what do we do about it? Intelligence Officer Minho Jiang had been working for 18 hours straight, and his eyes burned from staring at computer screens. But what he had discovered was worth every minute of lost sleep. "Captain Kim, you need to see this," he called out as Daeho entered the secure communications facility buried beneath Seoul. The room was filled with the most advanced listening equipment on Earth, all of it now focused on the Kalani ships floating above the world's cities. Daeho approached. Minho's workstation, where communication specialist Hyejin Song was also hunched over banks of monitors. Her fingers flew across keyboards as streams of data scrolled past. "What did you find?" Daeho asked. "The Kalani aren't as careful with their communications as they think," Hyejin said without looking up from her screens. "They're using quantum encryption, but they made one crucial mistake. They assumed we wouldn't understand their base mathematics." Minho pulled up a translated conversation on his main screen. "Dr. Choi's linguistic analysis software cracked their number systems yesterday. Once we understood how they count, their encryption became much easier to break." Daeho read the translation and his blood ran cold. The conversation was between two Kalani officers, and it painted a very different picture than what Ambassador Veltar had been telling the world leaders. "Phase 1 complete," read the first message. "Planetary leaders gathered and treaty presented as planned." "Resistance level?" came the reply. "Higher than expected. The humans are asking inconvenient questions about threat specifics. Recommend moving to Phase 2 if they do not sign within 24 hours. "What is Phase 2? Daeho asked grimly. Hyejin pulled up another intercepted transmission. "This one explains it. Listen to this conversation between Veltar and someone called Supreme Commander Thekran." The translated text appeared on screen. "The primitives are being difficult, Supreme Commander. They want evidence of threats before signing the protection treaty." "Then give them evidence," came the cold reply. "Deploy the shadow ships to the outer system. Stage a pirate attack on one of their space stations. Make sure there are casualties, but allow some survivors to report what they saw." "Understood. And if the attack doesn't convince them?" "Then we move to the direct approach. Their defenses are primitive. We can have orbital control within hours and ground control within days. The important thing is securing the strategic position before anyone else realizes its value." Daeho felt sick. "They're planning to attack us and make it look like pirates. Did it?" "It gets worse," Minho said, pulling up a database of files they had intercepted. "These are records of other worlds the Kalani have protected. Look at this pattern." The screen showed a list of planets with dates and brief descriptions. World after world, the same story repeated. First contact, offer of protection, mysterious attacks by unknown raiders, then grateful acceptance of Kalani protection. "How many worlds?" Daeho asked. "Over 300 in the last 2 centuries, Hyejin answered. "And here's the really disturbing part. Look at what happened to worlds that refused the initial offer." More files appeared on screen. Planets that had declined Kalani protection had suffered devastating attacks within months. Cities destroyed, populations enslaved, governments collapsed. In every case, the attackers were described as unknown hostile forces or pirate fleets. But look at the technical analysis of the attacks. Minho pointed to detailed reports. Same weapons signatures, same tactical approaches, same types of ships, These weren't random pirate attacks. This was the same military force hitting world after world. The Kalani, Deho said. Exactly. They create the very threats they claim to protect against. Any world that refuses their protection gets attacked by mysterious forces that just happen to use Kalani weapons and tactics. He-Jin pulled up another set of files. And once a world accepts protection, look what happens to their independence over time. The pattern was depressingly consistent. Worlds started as equal partners in the Confederation, but within a few decades, they became dependent colonies. Their militaries were absorbed into Kalani forces. Their governments became advisory councils with no real power. Their resources flowed to Kalani worlds. It's not protection, Deho realized. It's conquest disguised as friendship. The most efficient kind, Minho agreed. Why fight expensive wars when you can trick planets into surrendering voluntarily? A new alarm sounded, and Hyejin quickly pulled up a real-time transmission. Captain, this is happening right now. It's a message from the Kalani flagship to a group of ships hiding behind the moon. The translation appeared. Shadow Ship Squadron Alpha. Prepare for Phase 2 deployment. Target. International Space Station. Make it look like a pirate raid. Survivors should report seeing unknown ship designs, not Kalani technology. Deho grabbed the emergency phone. Get me Coordinator Lee immediately. The Kalani are about to attack the space station. While he waited for the connection, He-Jin continued monitoring the communications. Sir, there's more. They're also discussing Earth's specific value to them. Show me. Earth's location gives control over 3 major trade routes. The message. Read. More importantly, human military resistance appears minimal. Their weapons are primitive, their ships are slow, and their coordination between nations is poor. Occupation should be simple once the protection treaty is signed or Phase 2 is complete. But watch this next part, Minho said, highlighting another section. They're worried about something. Human behavior is unpredictable. The transmission continued. They ask too many questions and refuse to accept obvious truths. Recommend quick action before they develop effective countermeasures. Deho felt a grim smile cross his face. They're afraid of us. Not our weapons, Hyejin clarified. Our minds. They're used to dealing with species that accept their story without question. Humans keep asking for proof and pointing out inconsistencies. The phone finally connected, and Coordinator Lee's voice came through clearly. Captain Kim, what's the situation? Sir, the Kalani are planning to attack the International Space Station within the next few hours. They want to make it look like a pirate raid to force us into accepting their protection. A moment of silence. How do you know this? We've been monitoring their communications. Sir, the whole protection offer is a lie. They're the threat they claim to be protecting us from. Send me everything you have immediately. I'll alert the space station and call an emergency meeting of world leaders. As Deho uploaded the intercepted files, Minho discovered something else. Captain, look at this. They're not just planning one attack. If the space station raid doesn't convince us, they have a whole escalation plan. Attacks on satellites, then coastal cities, then major population centers, all while maintaining the pretense that they're trying to help us, He-Jin added. Each attack would be followed by renewed offers of protection. Daiho studied the timeline they had uncovered. How long do we have before they give up on the fake attacks and just invade directly? According to this schedule, 72 hours maximum, Minho answered. After that, they abandon the protection story and move to what they call direct pacification. 3 days, Daiho muttered. 3 days to figure out how to fight an enemy with technology centuries ahead of ours. Sir, Hyojin said quietly, there's one more thing. I've been analyzing their ship configurations and energy signatures. Their fleet looks impressive, but most of it is for show. The real military vessels are much smaller than the huge ships everyone can see. What do you mean? I think their whole strategy depends on intimidation and deception, not actual military strength. They're used to fighting primitives who surrender at the first sign of advanced technology. They might not be prepared for a real fight. Minho nodded slowly. That would explain why they're so eager to avoid actual combat. Every world they've conquered surrendered without a real battle. Daiho felt a spark of hope. The Kalani were powerful, but they might not be invincible. And they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated humanity's greatest weapon, the refusal to believe convenient lies. Keep monitoring their communications, he ordered, and start looking for weaknesses in their technology. If we're going to fight these bastards, we need every advantage we can get. The real war was about to begin, and it would be fought not just with weapons, but with the thing that had gotten humanity this far, the stubborn insistence on asking the right questions, even when the answers were terrifying. Dr. So-Young Choi had not slept in 36 hours, but her excitement kept her wide awake. Spread across her laboratory tables were dozens of Kalani devices that the aliens had given as gifts during the negotiations. What they had intended as impressive demonstrations of their technology, she was turning into something very different. "Hand me that scanner," she called to her assistant as she carefully opened another Kalani medical device. "I want to see how their quantum processors handle data encryption." 3 floors below her lab, in a secure conference room, Coordinator Woo Jin Lee was conducting the most unusual planning session in human history. Representatives from every major nation were present, either in person or by secure video link. But instead of the usual political discussions, this meeting focused on one simple question. How do you fight beings with technology centuries ahead of your own? "The attack on the International Space Station has been delayed," reported the American Defense Secretary. "Our warnings gave them enough time to evacuate all personnel to the emergency pods. But the Kalani don't know we intercepted their plans." "Good," Woo Jin said. "Let them think we're still ignorant. How long before they realize we're on to them?" Captain Daiho Kim stood before a large display showing the positions of Kalani ships around the world. "Intelligence estimates we have 18 hours before they abandon the charade and move to direct action. Maybe less if they suspect we're monitoring their communications." "Then we need to move fast," said the British Prime Minister from her screen. "What's our assessment of their actual military capability?" Lieutenant Nari Park stepped forward with her analysis. "Based on our observations, the Kalani fleet is designed for intimidation, not warfare. Those massive ships over our cities are mostly empty space and civilian facilities. Their actual warships are much smaller and fewer in number. How many actual combat vessels? Asked the Chinese premier. We count approximately 50 military-grade ships worldwide, Nari replied. The rest are transports, command ships, and what appear to be mobile space stations. A murmur of surprise went through the room. 50 ships was still a formidable force, but it was far less than the hundreds of vessels currently visible in Earth's skies. There's more, Daeho continued. Communications Officer Minho Jiang has been analyzing their tactical discussions. The Kalani have never fought a real war. Every conquest they've made was achieved through surrender or attacking defenseless worlds. So they're bullies, not warriors, observed the German Chancellor. Exactly. But they're still bullies with advanced technology, Wu Jin warned. We can't underestimate them just because they prefer easy targets. Dr. So Young Choi's voice came through the intercom system. Coordinator Lee, could you come to Lab 7? I have something important to show you. 10 minutes later, Wu Jin, Daeho, and Nari stood in So Young's laboratory, staring at a dismantled Kalani device that looked like a combination of art and high technology. This is their quantum communication array, So Young explained, pointing to crystalline components that seemed to glow with their own light. They use it for instant communication across vast distances. But look at this. She activated a scanning device, and the holographic display showed the internal structure of the alien technology. Their quantum encryption is incredibly sophisticated, but it has one major weakness. It's completely standardized. Meaning? Daeho asked. Every Kalani device uses the same base algorithms and security protocols. They've never had to worry about their technology being stolen or copied because they've only dealt with primitive worlds. But we're not quite as primitive as they think. So Young moved to another table where a human-built device sat connected to Kalani components. I've been reverse engineering their systems for the past day. Not only can we break their encryption, we can inject our own code into their networks. Nari's eyes widened. You mean we can hack their ships? More than that. Watch this. So Young activated her hybrid device, and suddenly every Kalani gift in the room began displaying human-created messages in Korean, English, and a dozen other languages. If I can do this to a few handheld devices, imagine what we could do to their main systems, So Young said with a grin. The Kalani are so used to technological superiority that they've never developed proper cybersecurity. Wu Jin felt the first real hope he'd had since this crisis began. How long do you need to create something we can use against their fleet? With the right team and resources. 6 hours for a basic attack virus, 12 hours for something that could really mess up their day. You have whatever you need, Wu Jin promised. What else? Dr. So Young Choi led them to a third table where she had been analyzing Kalani weapons technology. Their energy weapons are impressive, but they have one critical flaw. They're designed to work perfectly in the vacuum of space and in controlled atmospheric conditions, but they become much less effective in Earth's messy, variable atmosphere. How much less effective? Daeho asked. Against targets on the ground, maybe 60% of their space-based power. And if we can create enough atmospheric interference, smoke, chaff, electromagnetic fields, we could reduce their effectiveness even further. Nari was taking notes rapidly. What about their shields? That's the most interesting part, So Young said excitedly. Their defensive systems are incredibly advanced, but they're designed around the assumption that they'll be fighting other Kalani-level civilizations. They're optimized to stop energy weapons and high-tech projectiles, but not primitive kinetic weapons, Wu Jin realized. Exactly. A simple artillery shell or missile might punch right through shields designed to stop plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. The implications were staggering. Humanity's supposedly primitive military technology might actually be an advantage against an enemy who had never faced it before. Communications Officer Minho Jiang's voice came through the intercom. Coordinator Lee, we're intercepting urgent communications from the Kalani fleet. They're discussing moving up their timeline. How much time do we have? Wu Jin asked. Maybe 8 hours before they attack the space station, 12 hours before. They abandoned the protection story entirely. So Young looked at her workbench covered with alien technology and human innovations. I can have the virus ready in 6 hours, but we'll need a way to get it into their main systems. Leave that to us, Nari said. If you can create the weapon, we'll find a way to deliver it. As they left the laboratory, Daeho shook his head in amazement. I can't believe we're planning to fight aliens with computer viruses and artillery shells. That's exactly why it might work, Wu Jin replied. They've conquered hundreds of worlds, but they've never faced humans before. They don't know how we think, how we fight, or how we adapt. Plus, Nari added with a grim smile, they made one crucial mistake. They gave us their technology to study before they attacked us. What kind of warriors give their enemies advance? Copies of their weapons? The kind who have never lost a battle, Daeho said. But there's a first time for everything. Back in the laboratory, So Young Choi was already assembling her team of computer programmers, engineers, and technicians. She had 6 hours to create a computer virus that could cripple an advanced alien fleet. It sounded impossible, but then again, 24 hours ago, first contact with aliens had seemed impossible too. And if humans were good at anything, it was doing impossible things when their backs were against the wall. All right, people, she called out to her team as they gathered around the workbenches. We're about to teach these cosmic bullies why you should never underestimate a species that asks too many questions. The real fight was about to begin, and for the first time since the Kalani arrived, humanity was going to surprise them. Ambassador Veltar's patience had finally run out. The massive conference room aboard the Kalani flagship felt different this time when the human leaders arrived. Gone were the beautiful displays and impressive demonstrations. Instead, the room was stark and cold, with armed Kalani guards standing at every entrance. Coordinator Wu Jin Lee entered with his usual diplomatic composure, but Captain Daeho Kim and Lieutenant Nari Park could see the tension in his shoulders. They were walking into a trap, but it was a trap they needed to spring. Ambassador Veltar, Wu Jin said politely, thank you for agreeing to this emergency meeting. We're ready to discuss the protection treaty. Veltar's friendly mask had been completely abandoned. His dark eyes were cold, and his voice carried an edge of barely controlled anger. Your time for discussion has ended, Coordinator Lee. The Kalani Confederation's patience is not infinite. I'm sorry you feel that way, Wu Jin replied calmly. We've simply been trying to understand the details of your generous offer. Generous? Veltar stood abruptly, and the holographic displays around the room activated. Let me show you exactly how generous we have been. The images that appeared were horrifying. Burning cities, destroyed space stations, fleeing populations. All the scenes showed the same thing, worlds under attack by unknown forces. This is what happens to planets that refuse our protection, Veltar said, his voice growing colder with each word. The Andorian Republic thought they could stand alone. They lasted 3 months. More images appeared, ships exploding in space, orbital platforms being destroyed, armies being overwhelmed by superior technology. The Talarian Federation believed their military could protect them. They were wrong. Nari studied the images carefully. The attacking ships were dark and angular, very different from the smooth, elegant Kalani vessels. But something about their movement patterns seemed familiar. The hegemony of Kors tried to negotiate with the raiders, Veltar continued. Negotiation is impossible with forces that exist only to destroy and conquer. Dr. So-Young Choi, who had been quietly analyzing the holographic displays with a small scanner hidden in her sleeve, suddenly straightened. The readings on her device confirmed what she had suspected. These are very impressive images, she said carefully. The ships attacking these worlds have some unusual characteristics. Veltar turned to her, irritation clear on his alien features. What do you mean? The energy signatures of their weapons, So-Young replied. They're remarkably similar to Kalani technology, almost identical, in fact. Many species use similar energy principles, Veltar said quickly. It proves nothing. What? About the tactical formations? Daeho asked, pointing to one of the battle scenes. Those attacking ships are using standard Kalani fleet coordination patterns. I've been studying your formations for days. The ambassador's composure slipped further. Primitive species often copy more advanced tactics, except these attacks happened before those worlds had any contact with the Kalani, Nari interrupted. According to your own timeline, the Andorian Republic was attacked 6 months before you offered them protection. How could they copy tactics they had never seen? Veltar looked around at his guards, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. You are overanalyzing coincidences. Wu Jin leaned forward. Ambassador, let me ask you a direct question. Have the Kalani Confederation ever used military force against worlds that refuse to join your alliance? We are protectors, not conquerors. That's not what I asked, Wu Jin pressed. Have you ever used force? Sometimes military action is necessary to maintain galactic stability. Military action against whom? Veltar was growing visibly agitated. Against forces that threaten peaceful worlds, against raiders and pirates. Raiders and pirates who use Kalani weapons and tactics, So Young pointed out. Show us one of these raider ships, Nari demanded. Just one intact vessel from these mysterious attackers. They don't leave survivors or intact ships. How convenient, Deho said grimly. The room fell silent except for the hum of alien technology. Veltar realized he had been backed into a corner by the humans' relentless questions. His mask of diplomatic civility finally cracked completely. "Enough!" he snarled. "Your species is too primitive to understand the complexities of galactic politics. You ask stupid questions about things that don't concern you." "It concerns us quite a bit, actually," Wu Jin said calmly. "Since you're asking us to surrender our independence based on threats from these mysterious attackers." Veltar activated another display, and this time the images showed Earth's major cities from orbit. The implication was clear. "Your independence is an illusion," the ambassador said, his voice now openly threatening. "Look around you. We have ships above every population center on your world. Your primitive weapons cannot touch us. Your governments exist only because we allow it." "So the mask comes off at last," Nari said. "There was never a mask," Veltar shouted. "We offered you a choice. Join willingly and prosper, or resist and suffer the consequences. But make no mistake, you will join the Confederation. The only question is whether your world burns first." He gestured to the guards, who raised weapons that hummed with energy. "The protection treaty will be signed today. Your leaders will authorize the installation of our defense platforms, and your world will learn its place in the galactic order." "And if we refuse?" Wu Jin asked. Veltar smiled, and the expression was terrible on his alien features. "Then Earth will face the same fate as every other world that tried to stand alone. Pirates and raiders will begin attacking your orbital installations within hours. Your space stations will be destroyed. Your satellites will be eliminated, and when your people are desperate enough, they will beg us to save them. Pirates and raiders that just happen to use Kalani technology," Deho said. "Prove it," Veltar challenged. "Show me evidence that the Kalani Confederation has ever attacked an innocent world." "We can't," So Young admitted, "because you're very careful to make sure there are no survivors who could identify your ships." "Exactly. And there never will be." The threat hung in the air like a physical presence. This was no longer about protection or alliance. This was conquest, pure and simple. The Kalani had conquered hundreds of worlds using this same strategy, and they saw no reason why Earth should be any different. "How long do we have to consider your generous offer?" Wu Jin asked, his voice still diplomatically neutral despite. The guns pointed at them. 1 hour, Veltar said. "After that, the unfortunate pirate attacks begin. I suggest you use that time to convince your fellow leaders to see reason." As the human delegation was escorted back to their shuttle, Nari whispered to Dai-Ho, "Did you notice the timing?" "What about it?" "He said the attacks would begin within hours, but earlier intercepts suggested they needed more time to position their raiders." Deho understood immediately. "They're bluffing. They're not ready for Phase 2 yet, which means we have more time than they want us to believe." As their shuttle descended toward Earth, Wu Jin activated his secure communicator. Dr. Choi, how's that virus coming along? Almost ready, Coordinator. Give me 2 more hours. You have 1 hour. After that, we find out whether human ingenuity is a match for alien arrogance. Behind them, the Kalani flagship floated silently above Seoul. Ambassador Veltar was already preparing orders for the destruction of Earth's orbital installations. He had given the humans their final chance, and soon they would learn the price of defying the Kalani Confederation. But the humans had learned something important, too. They now knew exactly what they were fighting, and they knew their enemy's greatest weakness. The Kalani had grown so comfortable with easy victories that they had forgotten how to fight an opponent who refused to surrender. The time for diplomacy was over. The real war was about to begin. The war began not with explosions or laser fire, but with a single transmission broadcast simultaneously from every major city on Earth. Coordinator Woo Jin Lee stood in the emergency command center beneath Seoul, surrounded by screens showing military installations across the globe, all operating in perfect coordination for the first time in human history. This is Earth Defense Command to all Kalani vessels. Wu Jin spoke into the microphone, his voice calm and clear. We have considered your offer of protection. Our answer is no. Above the cities, the massive Kalani ships remained motionless. Ambassador Veltar had clearly expected humanity to surrender at the last moment, as every other species had done for centuries. We know what you really are, Wu Jin continued. We know about the 300 worlds you've conquered through lies and staged attacks. We know about the raiders and pirates that use Kalani weapons and tactics. And we know that Earth will not be number 301. Captain Daeho Kim watched the tactical displays as the first phase of humanity's response began. Around the world, every television station, radio broadcast, and internet connection was simultaneously transmitting the same message in dozens of languages. To any species monitoring this transmission, the broadcast continued, we are sharing complete technical specifications of Kalani military technology, evidence of their deception, and proof of their conquest strategy. The Kalani Confederation is not a benevolent alliance. They are conquerors who create the very threats they claim to protect against. Dr. So-Young Choi's fingers flew across her keyboard in the laboratory 3 floors below. Her virus was ready, and now it was time to deliver it to every Kalani system. Simultaneously, the Kalani made one crucial mistake. Her voice came through the intercom. They gave us their technology to study, activating countermeasures now. Across the globe, every Kalani device that had been given as a gift suddenly activated. Medical scanners, communication arrays, cultural displays, all of them became transmission points for So-Young's virus. The alien quantum networks, designed for efficiency rather than security, carried the human-created code directly into the heart of the Kalani fleet. Lieutenant Nari Park monitored the results from her tactical station. Phase 1 successful. Enemy communications are disrupted. Their coordination is breaking down. The response from the Kalani was swift and furious. The beautiful, peaceful ships that had floated serenely above Earth's cities suddenly bristled with weapons. Energy beams lanced down toward military installations, but humanity was ready. Atmospheric interference at maximum, reported the weather control stations. Military installations around the world had been creating artificial storms, electromagnetic fields, and clouds of metallic chaff for the past hour. The Kalani energy weapons, designed for the clean vacuum of space, found their power dramatically reduced in Earth's messy atmosphere. Phase 2, execute, Deho commanded. What happened next would have seemed impossible just days before. Military forces from every nation on Earth launched a coordinated attack using weapons the Kalani had never encountered. Artillery shells, cruise missiles, and kinetic projectiles, all fired simultaneously at the alien ships. The Kalani shields, designed to stop sophisticated energy weapons, were completely unprepared for simple chunks of metal moving at high velocity. Explosions blossomed around alien vessels as primitive human weapons punched through advanced defensive systems. Direct hits on 17 ships, Nari reported. Their shields are adapting, but slowly. Phase 3, Wu Jin ordered. Intelligence officer Minho Jiang had been monitoring Kalani communications throughout the battle. Despite their coordination being disrupted, he could still intercept fragments of their increasingly desperate transmissions. Supreme. Commander Thekran to all ships, he translated in real time. Primitive weapons penetrating shields, requesting immediate reinforcement from Sector Fleet. Response from Sector Fleet, Minho continued. Unable to provide support, under attack by unknown forces. Wu Jin allowed himself a grim smile. Communications. Specialist Haye-Jin Song had been busy during the preparation time, broadcasting evidence of Kalani deception to every inhabited system within 50 light-years. It seemed that other worlds were taking the opportunity to strike back at their oppressors. The battle above Earth's cities was unlike anything the Kalani had experienced. They were used to enemies who cowered at the sight of their advanced technology or who fought with similar energy-based weapons. But humans fought dirty. Fighter jets released clouds of metallic chaff that confused Kalani targeting systems. Ground-based railguns fired solid projectiles that moved too fast for energy shields to stop. And underneath it all, So Young's virus continued to spread through their networks, causing systems to malfunction at critical moments. Enemy vessel over London is retreating, reported the British Command Center. Beijing confirms 2 ships withdrawing from Chinese airspace, came. Another update? But the Kalani weren't finished. The ships that remained began targeting civilian populations directly, hoping to break human morale with terror attacks. Energy weapons targeting downtown Seoul, Nari called out urgently. Countermeasures deployed, Deho responded. Massive. Clouds of smoke and electromagnetic interference erupted from hidden generators throughout the city. The Kalani beams, already weakened by atmospheric effects, became almost useless in the artificial chaos. Ambassador Veltar's voice suddenly cut through all human communications, his diplomatic composure completely shattered. You primitive fools! You cannot win. Our empire spans 1,000 worlds. An empire built on lies, Wu Jin responded calmly, and lies have a way of catching up with you. As if to prove his point, Minho intercepted more communications from distant Kalani installations. Sir, we're getting reports of uprisings on dozens of Confederation worlds. Our broadcast evidence has triggered rebellions across 3 sectors. The tactical situation above Earth was shifting rapidly. Of the 50 Kalani warships that had initially threatened the planet, more than half had been damaged or forced to retreat. But the remaining vessels were regrouping for a final assault. They're pulling back to orbital bombardment range, Nari warned. At that distance, atmospheric interference won't protect us. Then we bring the fight to them, Day-Ho said. Sir? Nari looked confused. We don't have spacecraft capable of orbital combat. Not spacecraft, So Young's voice came through the intercom. But we do have satellites. And thanks to reverse-engineered Kalani technology, some of those satellites now have very interesting capabilities. Around the world, communications satellites and weather monitoring stations suddenly revealed hidden modifications. In the past 24 hours, human engineers had worked frantically to adapt alien technology for human purposes. Kalani quantum communication arrays, reverse-engineered and weaponized, So Young explained, as bright flashes appeared in orbit. If they want to fight in space, they'll discover that human innovation is a very dangerous thing. The satellite weapons weren't particularly powerful, but they didn't need to be. They were designed for precision strikes on specific systems, targeting computers, shield generators, weapon control nodes, all the critical components that the virus had already weakened. One by one, the remaining Kalani ships found their systems failing. Ships designed to intimidate primitive worlds were no match for opponents who had studied their technology and found ways to turn it against them. Supreme Commander Thekran to all Confederation forces, Minho translated the latest intercept. Withdraw from Earth immediately. The primitives have adapted our technology. Repeat, immediate withdrawal. Fleet Admiral responding, Minho continued. Withdrawal impossible. Half our ships are disabled. The other half are being hunted by their own satellites. As the last functional Kalani ships limped away from Earth, Coordinator Wu Jin Lee allowed himself to feel the first real hope he'd had since this crisis began. But he knew the battle was far from over. Global Defense Command to all stations, he broadcast. Phase 1 complete. Immediate threat neutralized. Begin Phase 2. Helping our new allies. Across the galaxy, the Kalani Confederation was discovering what happened when you built an empire on deception. The evidence of their crimes was spreading from world to world, and the artificial peace they had maintained through fear was crumbling. Earth had asked one simple question, and that question had changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same again. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, Dr. So Young Choi stood in the observation deck of humanity's first interstellar embassy. The space station orbited a world called Andoria Prime, where purple skies stretched over silver cities, and 3 moons painted the landscape in constantly shifting colors. Still hard to believe we're here, said communications specialist Haya Jin Song, joining her at the massive viewing window. Through the transparent aluminum, they could see ships from dozens of different species docked at the station. The galaxy had changed dramatically since Earth's simple question had exposed the Kalani deception. Ambassador Choi, came a voice behind them. So Young still wasn't used to her new title, but someone had to represent humanity in the Galactic Liberation Council, and her role in defeating the Kalani had made her a natural choice. She turned to see Captain Dae-ho Kim approaching, now wearing the uniform of the Earth Defense Force's new Interstellar Division. Beside him walked a tall, blue-skinned Andorian with the bearing of a military officer. Dr. Choi, the Andorian said in accented but clear English, "I am General Keth Ara of the Andorian Republic. I wanted to thank you personally for what your species did." "You're very welcome, General," So Young replied. "But we weren't trying to save the galaxy. We were just trying to save ourselves by asking the right questions," Cathara said with something that might have been a smile on his alien features. "Do you know how many species the Kalani contacted before you? How many accepted their protection without ever asking who they needed? Protection from?" The question was rhetorical, but Haye-jin answered anyway. 347 worlds, according to the records we recovered from their command ships. And in all those centuries of conquest, you were the first to ask for proof, Cathara continued. The first to demand evidence. The first to question their story. Through the viewing window, they could see a massive construction project taking shape in space. Ships from dozens of worlds were working together to build something unprecedented, a truly voluntary alliance of free worlds. "How goes the liberation effort?" Dae-ho asked. "Better than we dared hope," Cathara replied. The Kalani Confederation controlled nearly 1,000 worlds at its peak. In the 6 months since your broadcast exposed their deception, over 700 have declared independence. Most of the remaining worlds are negotiating peaceful transitions. So Young felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. All of this had started because Lieutenant Na-Ri Park had raised her hand and asked a simple question. Now entire civilizations were free because humans had refused to accept convenient lies. "What about the Kalani themselves?" Haye-jin asked. "Their military has largely disbanded," Cathara explained. "Some fled to distant regions of the galaxy. Others have requested asylum on the worlds they once controlled. It seems that many individual Kalani were as trapped by their system as the worlds they conquered. And the others? Ambassador Veltar and Supreme Commander Thekran are being held for war crimes trials," Dae-ho said grimly. "The evidence we gathered will ensure they never threaten anyone again." And chimes sounded through the station, and a voice announced, in multiple languages, that the Galactic Liberation Council was reconvening. So Young straightened her formal robes and prepared to return to the council chambers. "One more thing," Cathara said, as they walked through the corridors of the station. "The council has been discussing a proposal. We want to establish what we're calling the Earth Doctrine." "Which is?" So Young asked. "A formal policy requiring proof of any claimed threats before any world can be asked to surrender sovereignty for protection. Every alliance proposal, every protection treaty, every claim of imminent danger must be backed by verifiable evidence." They entered the council chambers, where representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in a vast circular arrangement. The diversity was stunning. Beings of every conceivable shape, size, and color, all working together to build something better than what had come before. Coordinator Woo Jin Lee was already at the human delegations table, reviewing documents on a tablet. He looked up as they approached. "How are the trade negotiations proceeding?" So Young asked. "Exceptionally well," Woo Jin replied with satisfaction. "It turns out that when you don't have to give most of your resources to an imperial overlord, there's a lot more to go around. Earth's position at the intersection of 3 trade routes is proving as valuable as the Kalani claimed, but now we're benefiting from it." Lieutenant Nari Park entered the chamber and took her seat at the tactical analysis station. Her promotion to Strategic Defense Coordinator for the new alliance had been unanimous. The beings who had lived under Kalani oppression wanted someone who understood the importance of asking difficult questions. "Status report," Woo Jin requested. "All quiet on the defensive perimeter," Nari replied. "The Vorthak Collective sent scouts to probe our borders last week, but they withdrew when they detected our sensor networks. Word is spreading that this region of space is no longer an easy target." So Young smiled. The Vorthak were real, unlike the fictional threats the Kalani had invented. But they were also practical. Pirates and raiders only attacked when they expected. Easy victories. A well-defended alliance of free worlds was not an appealing target. "Intelligence reports?" Woo Jin continued. Intelligence Officer Minho Jang looked up from his array of monitoring equipment. "We're tracking 12 separate Kalani remnant groups, but none appear to be planning military action. Most are focused on finding new homes for their displaced populations." "Good. And the liberation status?" 18 more worlds declared independence this week, Minho reported. "The cascade effect continues to spread. We estimate full dissolution of the Confederation within another 6 months. The session began with representatives from newly liberated worlds reporting on their transitions to independence. World after world told similar stories, populations discovering they had resources and capabilities they never knew existed, now that they weren't being drained away to support the Kalani Empire. When So Young's turn came to address the council, she stood and activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber. 6 months ago, my world was contacted by beings, claiming to offer protection, she began. They had impressive technology, beautiful ships, and convincing stories about galactic threats. Most importantly, they had centuries of experience in making their offer seem generous and reasonable. The display showed recordings from those first meetings aboard the Kalani flagship, including the moment when Nari had asked her simple question. But they made one crucial mistake. They encountered a species that had learned, through centuries of hard experience, that when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. They met humans. Murmurs of agreement and appreciation came from around the chamber. The story of Earth's resistance had become legendary among the liberated worlds. Today, I want to propose that we formalize the lesson Earth learned, So Young continued, that the most powerful weapon against deception is a simple question. Prove it. The Earth Doctrine passed by unanimous vote. From that day forward, any claim of threats requiring protective intervention would have to be backed by evidence that could be independently verified. As the session ended and representatives began to disperse, Hyojin approached So Young with a communication device. "Ambassador, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. They want to speak with you directly." The message was from President Kim of South Korea, calling on behalf of the United Earth government that had formed in the wake of the Kalani crisis. "Dr. Choi," the president said, "I have news that I think you'll want to hear. We've just received our first contact request from a species we've never encountered before. The hegemony of cores wants to establish diplomatic relations." So Young felt her heart race. The hegemony of cores was one of the worlds the Kalani had claimed was destroyed by raiders. If they were contacting Earth, it meant they had not only survived but rebuilt. "What are they offering?" she asked. "Nothing," the president replied with a smile. "They're not offering protection or technology or membership in anything. They just want to talk. They say they've heard about the species that asks difficult questions, and they're curious about us." After the call ended, So Young stood again at the observation window, watching ships from across the galaxy working together on their great construction project. In the distance, she could see Earth's first true starship nearing completion. Not a weapon of war, but an exploration vessel designed to seek out new worlds and ask new questions. Captain Dae-ho joined her at the window. "Any regrets about how things turned out?" "Only one," So Young replied. "I regret that it took an invasion to make us realize how powerful the truth could be. What's next for humanity?" So Young pointed to the stars beyond the construction zone, where unknown worlds waited to be discovered. "The same thing we've always done. We keep asking questions, we keep looking for answers, and we never, ever accept that something is true just because someone in authority says it is." The galaxy was vast and full of wonders and dangers that humanity had barely begun to understand. But whatever challenges lay ahead, Earth had proven something important. Sometimes the most advanced technology in the universe was no match for the simple courage to ask the right question at the right time.